Today, I have on the podcast my very dear friend, Michele Bezjak, who I have known since childhood. And I am just so happy to have you here today as I introduce season 12, Behind the Scenes of Healing. So welcome, Michele.
Thanks for having me. Excited for my first podcast, Sundays with Wendy.
I know I've recorded probably 6 or 7 episodes from your house in
I know,
Florida.
isn't that funny? I'm in your office right now.
I know.
Wendy's office.
Isn't that funny? I know.
Mm-hmm.
I'm missing a little Florida sunshine today.
Yeah,
It's
it's
full.
beautiful here today. All right, let's dive in.
All right. Well,
Love it.
I wanted you on the first episode because, the season is called Behind the Scenes of Healing. And I feel like you were just there for me in all of the rawness, but I just felt like this was such a good way to kick off the season.
Yeah.
So tell me a little bit, we've known each other for so long. So you've seen me go through, gosh, we were single together, married, kids, then I was divorced. And then, Ben got sick and Ben's death, and then my diagnosis and recovery. And that's a lot, for a friend to endure. So share with me just a little bit about, the way you view all that you've seen me go through.
Yeah, I think the funny thing about me and you, I think we met when we were 14, 15. I think how we've stayed friends, being the most opposite people in the world, is probably what has strengthened our friendship. Even growing up, we had another friend, we won't mention names, but my mom always said I had an angel and a devil on my shoulder, and it depended on who I was hanging out with. Obviously, you were the angel. You were always very guided and very black and white. I think because of that and everything you've gone through, I don't know that I've ever worried about you too much. I do remember when Ben got sick, you said to me, I remember, you could not handle this world. And that's true. Like the strength of what you went through and who you are. And even now sitting here and what you've accomplished, that would not be me. The people handle things so differently, but I look at you as someone that, I don't know how to do it. I'm trying to put it into words, but you've always just been, I call it the black and white. Like you know what you needed to do. You knew how you were going to survive that. You knew how you were going to work through it with Ben. You didn't dwell on the negative, or, you said to me, you'd be in a fetal position, and I would have, and I still would be. So I think that's a testament to who you are, but going through it with you, I think when someone like you has so much strength and you approach things really differently than me, I guess I could say. Like you were always like, okay, well, this is what we're going to do. I don't know if your viewers have ever heard that story of the day Ben got sick and I flew in to the hospital when you had just heard
a little bit. Like we had come down to Florida and spent some time with you guys.
Yeah. And Ben was what, 5? Mm-hmm. Maybe a little younger than 5 when you came down. And Mark and I just noticed there's something wrong. He was devouring orange juice. Like it's a weird thing to remember, but it wasn't like 1 cup, 2 cups. It was like he drank a gallon in a day. It was like he just his body was craving something. And you probably weren't noticing as much because it's your kid and you're just busy and you're trying to keep him happy because you're traveling. Same when we went to the beach that next day. Remember, he would not touch the sand. He hated it. And we're like, okay, that's normal. But then he was like, needed the ice cream. It was like his body was just craving maybe the sugar, or maybe just he knew something was wrong before we knew something was wrong, I think. But that was kind of the start of Mark and I, and he was real clingy to Mark that weekend.
Remember.
Mm-hmm. He wouldn't leave Mark's lap, which, Ben was always a loving, like sweet, huggy kid. But that time I just remember him just latching on to Mark. So I think from that, and then you went home and he got a fever, just didn't go away, remember? And then, Peyton, my oldest, Peyton had Kawasaki's disease at 5. So I remember calling you just saying, stop, it's weird. He still has his fever. So my doctors had missed it with Peyton. So I just remember calling you and saying, hey, look into this. Just ask some other questions. And then, unfortunately, that's when that diagnosis came through. And I think I jumped on the plane and was there the next day.
Always do.
Yeah. And then I just remember you looked great. I mean, that's what I remember of you. Had your jeans on, you had your heels, and you said, I won't let this defeat me. I won't be one of these moms in here with no makeup, crying and wearing sweatpants and looking like a zombie. And that, I think, brought Ben's strength. I think it brought Jeff's strength. It brought your family strength. It brought everyone just around you that you weren't falling apart.
Well, I mean, I think when we were leaving, we were in the hospital for, I think, about 13 days, right
Yeah.
around diagnosis. When we were leaving, there was a social worker in the room with us. And, I looked at her and I said, I don't know what I'm going to do because I've always worked, and she looked at me. She didn't even blink. She said, you are not going to do anything different. She says, if that little boy sees you hanging around the house all the time, he's going to think something's really.
Yeah.
And it really took a while to sink in
Yeah.
what that meant, because of course, as a mother, you just want to be with your child and take all that pain away. But we were so fortunate to have my parents and Jeff, and Ben's sister flew back in from Miami for a short time. I mean, we just all worked that we were able to maintain our lives and some normalcy for him. I do. And I think that is some of the best. Now, that probably wasn't good advice for every family, but it was the best advice for ours.
Yeah, but I think that's how your brain works. You are a worker. You always have been since I've known you. I just think that's how you just do life anyway. You go, you work your, 12 hours a day, and that's normal, where most people don't even work 8, but you're fortunate though. I will say, I mean, fortunate and unfortunate. You only had one child at the time. You didn't have to worry about anyone else. You could take your work on the road. So I think that made it easier. I think some families have a harder time when they have 3 or 4 kids and everything is being devoted to the sick kid. I have a friend going through it now, and it's very hard for her to split the time, right? And a lot of marriages suffer. I mean, yours suffered in a different way. Not because of Ben, but that may be a different podcast.
Yeah.
But I think that goes toward the healing journey too, of how you handled yourself in that. Maybe we do that part 2.
But yes, I felt grateful in a lot of ways that my attention could be fully on him.
Yeah. And I think he felt that. I mean, I don't think he ever, that kid was happy until the day, he passed away. Even in his sickest moments, he wasn't a sad kid. He was just happy. He enjoyed every bit of life. And I think you brought that to him. You never treated him like a sick kid.
You never did.
No, you never did. You just treated him like, all right, this is your treatment. This is what we got to do, but this is what we're going to do. And he went through it, but every picture, every time he came down, I just remember him being so happy. And he did love my kids. Oh my gosh, they loved each other, So, but I remember, who was it that told us that grief was like a tidal wave? And I can't remember that person. But I remember that always resonated with me and you. And I remember saying to you, you're going to have tidal waves. You're going to have a day where the wave is so big and you think you're never going to get out of that wave. And then it'll slowly get slower and slower. But in like any kind of wave, it will sneak up on you. And I just always remember trying to tell you on the bad days, like, it's a wave. We'll get through it. We'll get through it. And you did. And look what you've done. I mean, you've turned grief into something amazing. I mean, that's testament to you.
Well, I think I didn't really know what I was going to do in the beginning, but now, fast forward and here we are. And when I look back, I mean, people ask me sometimes like, how much time do you spend on the foundation? But I can't even say. It's just kind of, it just kind of becomes who I am. And I look at it like the time I get to spend on this foundation is the time I would have devoted to him if he was still here.
Yeah. Remember that time we took you to the Grand Canyon after we went on our healing trip? And you were kind of like trying to write a book or like just document your thoughts and what you were going to do. That was like the first part of your healing journey of, okay, this happened to me, but I need to do something in his name. This was before the foundation. And I remember we were in the helicopter and you were like spinning. Your brain was like all this stuff. It was just, I could tell like you didn't know what to do. And I was like, I think everyone in this world would like to know, not about Ben and music. They want to know you as a mother. Like right now, why are you not jumping? Like I remember that conversation and you said, what do you mean? You looked at me like I had five heads. Like, how could I ask you that question? And I said, that's what I want to know. Like, why are you not wanting to jump and kill yourself after your only son? And you said, you looked right at me, I remember, and said, because that would dishonor his life.
Mm-hmm.
And I would never do that to him. And I was like, wow,
Mm-hmm.
you know?
Well, I don't think we get to pick the story. I mean,
Yeah.
he wasn't supposed to be here for a long
Long
period of time.
time. Right. But
And
you know that most
not,
mothers can't rationalize their brain like that. And that's where I go back to you always being, you're like my husband. It's black and white. This is the order of life. This is the order of the world. I basically married you
I know.
when Mark. If people met my husband, they would be like, you married your best friend, Wendy, but just in a male form because your personalities are so much alike. There's no like real gray area. This is what we got to do and to get through it, you know?
I know, but I
So,
also feel like, Ben and I were very connected, and I can say it now spiritually.
yeah, I
I could,
agree with that.
it was more of a kind of telepathic kind of knowing of one another. And I had to grieve his physical presence.
Yeah.
I just never lost the other connection.
Yeah. And I think that's why Jeff had a hard time with you and Ben, because you guys had something that like was so extraordinarily special.
Mm-hmm.
Like, and maybe that's because God knew he was only going to give them to you for those short 8 years, that he gave you a lifetime in 8 years that some parents don't have and will never have with their children, you know?
Yeah,
So,
I know. That's what I think about when I get sad.
yeah, I mean, you're going to, again, it's a wave, right? You're going to have those moments, and I think for the audience, the truth, I never treated you differently. I think some of your friends, and we've talked through these people, it's really hard when a friend loses a child, especially when your best friend has 3 children. But I just remember saying, I'm not going to treat you differently. So I never stopped talking about my kids. I remember like a week after Ben died, I said, oh my God, I got to go to lacrosse practice. And I just never apologized for that.
Mm-hmm.
I just kept treating you normal. But that's not easy. That was back then. Now it's fine. But
Mm-hmm.
that was never easy to like, you would hesitate. Gosh, do I talk about my kids? But they're like, you're like a sister to me. So they're like your nieces and nephews. So I was like, nope, we're just going to like continue. We got to continue. That's how Wendy would do it with me. And I know you would.
But I think that's what's kept our relationship strong. Like had you acted differently, our relationship would have changed.
Yeah.
And we may not have the relationship we do today.
Yeah. I mean, look, of course I feel sorry for you, but there's a difference between feeling sorry for someone and and treating them that you're sorry for them. Of course, everyone has a loss of a child is the greatest loss of life. I mean, it's unimaginable. But I just always knew like you were not someone I was going to treat with kid gloves. Like, not that you don't deserve it, but you're tough and you had your way of grieving, and I kind of followed your path and how you did things,
Yeah. And no, yeah, it's hard not to judge too,
Yeah.
Everyone does it so different.
Yeah. And you're going to have a lot of friends that go in and out of that, right? Some people love grief. Some people love it, They love to have the friend that needs the grief,
Yeah.
So fast forward, and then, you went through but you've gone through, I mean, I don't know how much your audience knows about other things. You've gone through more than one human should actually go through.
Yeah. I mean, back when I thought like getting divorced was like the worst thing that could happen to you,
Right. Yeah. Well,
And then, so, fast forward. So Ben got diagnosed in 2013. He passed away in 16. And so I did what Wendy does, and I carried on and worked, started the foundation, and I'm living just as clean and healthy of a life as I could.
Yeah, she is really clean, you guys. She eats really clean.
It's kind of
she really does. Again, black and white. We just are very different. I'm a horrible eater.
So in 5 years after Ben passed, I was Ben had a stage 4 rare cancer, and I was diagnosed with a stage 4 rare cancer. And I called you. Well, actually, I did more than call you. You were following some of that testing, and it was around
Yeah.
Thanksgiving. And well, this is a funny story. I called you because it had spread to my liver. It was lymph, and it's the kind of, I'll just say it. I mean, it's the cancer you don't want to even tell anyone you have, but it was stage 4 anal. So we've had several laughs about that as
Yeah,
well.
well, remember we called it butthole cancer because I was
We
like,
did.
I'm not going to say anal cancer. I'm not. And I said, butthole's a funnier word. So we laughed about that for a couple good days,
Mm-hmm.
you know.
And then you said you felt bad because when I told you it had spread to my liver, and you said, I'll give you part of mine. And I said, I
Yeah,
just laughed and I said, no, I'll take my.
I'll take my chance. You did. And I was like, all right, that's fair. I mean,
Yeah.
kudos. But that's, again, you and your testimony to being able to laugh. But you called me, it was before Thanksgiving that year. I mean, all these years are getting mixed up in my head because it's been so long. But you called me and you had a hemorrhoid.
Or
And
thought I had a hemorrhoid.
you thought you did. And you complained about it for a few months. And I was like, oh my God, just go to the freaking doctor. They can, snap it off or do whatever. I mean, not in my wildest dreams. In my wildest dreams did I think that phone call. Um, and
Yeah.
yeah.
I
So
think
when you remember that phone call, but I was like, all right, I got to tell you, I always in my heart knew Ben was going to pass away. I did. It was just a matter of when and how long he would fight it. I felt Ben fought it much longer than I thought he would. And I've said this to you from the beginning. I was like, it's okay. You'll be fine. I've said it from the beginning. In my heart, I've never once been worried about your diagnosis. I don't know why. I have a peace about it. Um, you're the healthiest person I know with stage 4 cancer. You're healthier than most of my friends. You work, it's like not present. And I'm telling you, I just have had, you know, my, I'm a little bit more spiritual as far as like Jesus and God than you are. But I also know, like, I don't know, I'm not worried about it. I know that God's going to heal you. I think you have too much on this earth to do, more to do. And I've never freaked out about it for some reason. And I'm still not freaked out about it. People survive this. So I'm like, well, move on. All right. What are you going to do? Just keep doing the Ben stuff. I think we're going to just brush over the anal cancer. Um,
I mean,
and you'll
so
be fine.
far that's what happened. I mean, look,
Yeah.
it hasn't been
I'm
easy
not
to
worried.
do all the things that anybody has to do, but
Yeah.
I figured let's just the way we did it with Ben, it'll be repeat, like just
Yeah.
do the same things, and that's what happened. But this is a funny story. I went, kind of deep into all the healing space and became a Reiki master and all the things. So when I had that Thanksgiving, I had gone, and it wasn't an official diagnosis, but they told me that I had stage 4 cancer and they could treat me palliatively. So after that appointment, I just decided I would have to go somewhere else and be treated under a different doctor who thought about this a little differently. And I was down in Boca with you, and you said, Wendy, we've got really good doctors down here. And so I continued. I had biopsies down there. I got my port down there. I had my official diagnosis down there.
Yeah.
And you said, hey, there's a woman who does some healing at, Tammy Fender's spa. Do you want to go? And I was like, yeah, sure. Let's go. And you took me there, but it was so funny because I kind of described what she did when you picked me up. And
I'm trying not to roll my eyes right now because you know how I love this not touching $200 not touching massage.
so it was you asked me, was it a massage? And I said, yeah, but she did her energy work. She didn't touch me. And you just like flipped out.
Yeah. So for the audience, let me just say, if I'm paying and it's $200 for massage, I need to be touched. And we got a good laugh because that, again, is why I've said from the beginning, like how we're still friends, because we truly are so opposite ends of the spectrum on what we believe and how we go about life, which I think it's funny. Like you were like, oh no, she brought out stuff. And I was like, oh my God, she didn't touch you once. Like there's no massage. And then I remember going, well, I could do that for you. Just lay on the bed and then you give me $200. But that works for you. Right?
It really does. And I still see her today.
And yeah, I was going to say you still see her. Listen, I'm not going to lie. When you got diagnosed, I use that as I've been trying to get you to move to Florida and be with me for how many years? Even after Ben got sick, I was like, you need a change. This was, selfishly like come to Florida, get out of Virginia, get away from all that. And then when you got diagnosed, I was like, oh, I got another shot. So I tried to use it. I got you here for a little bit. But your safety is at home and where you need to be. But I mean, being at the doctor's appointments with you, I mean, we went to every appointment. We tried to like figure it out, but it was good for me to be there to hear it. So I knew.
Mm-hmm.
Still trying to get you to move to Florida, everyone.
You're not as patient as I am.
No, that's the other thing. You were like, well, I'm not going to call them back and ask. I mean, they'll call me when they're ready. And I'm like, oh my God. So remember, I was making phone calls, like asking the people, I need someone on my team. That's what I would say to people.
Mm-hmm.
Listen, my best friend's got this. She's alone right now. I'm on her team and I need you to be on my team. So could you please give me the results or could you please get us an appointment? It worked a lot of times.
It did.
Because I felt like the nicer I was to people and they heard the desperation because you're still like that for the record. Like your PET scan will be on a Wednesday and I'm like, do you get the results? You're like, I don't know. They'll probably call me Monday. I'm like, Monday? Like, oh my God, don't you want to know? And you're like, no, it's going to be what it's going to be. And I would lose my mind. I would lose my mind. I would have to sit there after the PET scan and wait for the results that day. I wouldn't leave. And you're like, that's not how it goes. And I'm like, I don't like this.
It comes to the portal and then we just analyze the hell out of it.
Yes, we do.
Right.
And then we send it to people and then we Google and then I Google things and, but I think this healing part of your journey is so much different than Ben's. You don't seem, I mean, back then, I think it's because the vulnerability of being a mom and seeing your child sick and hurt and in pain and how that makes you feel as a human. I think when you're sick, you're just plugging along. You're just doing your thing. I think you losing your hair the first round was hard.
Oh yeah, that it's awful.
Yeah, I mean, I think that to me was the only time, even in Ben's death, that I've seen you that vulnerable. And I know it wasn't about the hair. I really know it wasn't. It was just the moment where you were like, why is this happening? And that was when I felt like you were weak. Now we fight, and I hope this goes viral so everyone can be on my side on this. But you've always said, if I have to go through another round of chemo, I won't go. And I'm like, you will. We will fight about that until I have to put the needle in you myself. And you said no, and you still say no. But I say yes because you owe it to me. I mean, you just do. Like, I'm going to selfishly say that. Like, I don't know how to do life without you. And I've always said that. Like, we talk every morning. Mm-hmm. And at least in the afternoon, like I talk to you more than I talk to my husband sometimes when he travels. Like, and even when you're staying at my house, it's weird because I get in the car in the morning and go to work, and then I'm like, she's at my house. It's like weird to call, because we just talked. Yeah, but I think this is where your healing journey's not done. But right now you're fine, and you will be fine. That's why we'll fight about that on the next episode. Healing part 2. Maybe you won't even need it.
No, I mean, at this point, it's not effective. Like, they can't prove it's effective. But I'm just saying that I truly think cancer is more than doctors giving you pharmaceuticals. I mean, I do.
Oh, of course.
The healing is more multifaceted than that. And, throwing everything I threw at it, it's hard to tell.
Yeah, but I mean, again, I'm not worried about you. And I'll keep saying that. And I don't know. Like, I just have this peace about this one that I didn't have in the past, that I haven't had in my life.
Like, you're not worried yet. You always said, I'm not worried yet.
No worry. I don't know. We're plugging along in our lives like we plan on doing, we have plans.
Yeah.
Well, you're going to grow old with me and we're going to retire from work and we're going to learn to play golf and we're going to do all that like stupid stuff old people do when they wake up and, you're going to buy a house in North Carolina next to me. Like, we have plans.
The lot is empty, right?
It's very empty. And that's where you're going to build a house. So I have plans for you. But I don't know. I think as a friend, like friendship and healing, I think I will say you have a semi-good support system. You have some people that I feel are not great support. And again, we've talked about this in the past of having friends that don't don't need you to be sick, don't need you to be grieving about a child, don't need you to be grieving about your divorce. You know, that all that stuff feeds into their need to have that friend in their life. Like, I don't need that, you know? And you have a couple really good friends in Virginia that are those friends to you, right?
But I'm very lucky
Yeah.
that I don't feel alone,
Yeah.
ever.
Yeah. I mean, you've gone through a lot too. I mean, your audience should know, like, you're losing Ben for your mom. That was the other hard thing. Our moms are very similar. We'll leave it at that. But for your mom, that was probably the greatest loss she'll have in her life. Even if I do truly believe if you died, it will not be as hard of a loss to her as Ben. And I think it set her in. She had a connection to Ben too. I can't explain. Um, and I think it's harder for your mom now to be not. She's very supportive. Let's put it that way. But to be the support that you need, right? Like, and how you need it to go. But some people don't know how to do, Wendy. That's true. Like, you're too strong for people. You're too, and how,
I know, but even if I try not to do it, it doesn't work. Like if
it doesn't work for you. That's not who you are.
Actually doesn't work. Like I've tried to be a little more
Vulnerable
soft and vulnerable, and yes, at times I am, but like it gets
It's not your person. It's never been your personality. I mean, you're a ball buster when it comes to life. I mean, most people aren't, people really aren't. And that's true. I mean, how you approach business, how you approach friendships, you expect your friends to be as loyal, and you're the most loyal person in the world. And that's what you need out of your friends.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I think you've done well. I mean, I think we'll all never know what your true healing journey is, right? When you're home alone and the lights are off and you're laying in bed with quietness. I mean, I think that's your real healing journey that I don't think anyone would know. And maybe there's a side of you that none of us know as far as how sad and lonely you feel without Ben, but you wake up and you forge on.
Yeah. When like those waves come, like we talked about, I honor that. Will feel like crap for a while.
Yeah.
It passes, and then you just have to honor it when
it
happens.
Well, and I would say, I mean, I would think it's hard for you right now when you see Emerson graduating, right? Because Ben would be a year under her, right? So Ben would have been a junior, and you see Hudson as a freshman. Like, I think those are the times where I am cognizant of how that has to make you feel. But then I have to have you dictate to me when you want to talk about that, right? And when you don't.
Well, I mean, I think that, yeah, I'm always going to have a sense of he would be doing this or he would have done that. But that's fair to push on anyone in my life.
I don't know, but I think it's good to acknowledge that, right? I mean, we talk about it all the time. Like, even when you're not here, when Emerson would be like, I wonder what Ben would be doing. Would he be playing a sport? And I was like, oh, God, hell no.
No.
He would not be playing a sport. He'd be like I don't know, he'd be starting some musical business or something. He'd be an entrepreneur in my head. I think that's what he'd be doing.
What kind of car would he drive? Like, what would he want to drive?
Yeah, I know. It wouldn't be your typical truck, what he would want. And would Jeff still be alive if Ben was alive?
Yeah. I know.
All those questions.
But you did a beautiful job of when I was there for almost a month around that diagnosis time, but you just integrated all that we were dealing with emotionally, driving me to all of these appointments. And well, at least from my viewpoint, did not affect your family.
No, because you've always just been part of the family. I mean, Mark considers you, his sane wife. He'd probably have you here versus me. It's just an equal, but no, you don't. You just integrate really well, like you always have. And we've talked about this. If you got sick again, you would live with me. And I'm sorry for everyone in Virginia. You're coming here. We've already talked about it. And I said I would set you up with a hot nurse. So, the end day, you'd have a hot male nurse.
That would be I did like my surgeon there. I mean, he been one of my favorite doctors. Down.
I think that's the hard part of having cancer is you're a number. Um,
Mm-hmm.
these doctors see thousands of people with cancer and they're immune to it. They're numb to it. They don't, it's not that they don't care, but your patient, 1015, where, the next one, as soon as you walk in the door, another one comes in. And I have a harder time with that because I want, VIP care for you. I want everyone to feel like my friend John, though, like that. I need to start making friends with those kind of doctors. John, the radiologist, he still texts me all the time to find out how you are.
Oh, doesn't?
Um, and that's what you want, right? But that's the hard part about the healthcare system. Unless you have a relationship, a social relationship with the cancer doctor, you're just a number.
Yeah.
It's for anyone out there.
Yeah, that
Yeah.
was the hard part. Like coming from pediatrics, it's such a different approach.
Well, right.
It's much, and I think I was shocked,
Right.
an adult to think that I'm just going to go sit in this chair and that's it.
Yeah.
And I mean, it was so weird.
Yeah. And it still is, right? When you go, like they just don't, you're not a kid. They're not sad
Mm-mm.
about your life.
Mm-mm.
It's just,
No,
I even noticed that when we're in the room,
and then I'm so, I'm so like the opposite. Like I don't take any medication at all.
Right.
And when I had chemo the first time, I had a really hard time the first time before I started with the herbalist and doing some of these other things. And I made them reduce the dosage 20%. And then I said, okay, well, what about the steroid? Are we going to reduce that 20%? Like I gave them hell.
Yeah. Well, you know too much. I mean, that's the problem. You also know too much about the cancer world. And they're probably not used to that, They're
Yeah.
like, what is she how does she know all these things,
Like I got a rash one time. The immunotherapy I'm on right now, it's really, luckily, I don't have any side effects. So one time I got a very severe rash.
Oh, yeah, I remember that.
Went in and she gave me some cream and she said, take Benadryl. None of that worked. But you know what worked? I told her, I was like, she said, well, how did that work out? And I said, well, I was going to go to Mother Earth, right? So I used castor oil and it was gone.
Yeah,
It just stares at me. Like, I don't even think the woman knows what to say to me anymore.
yeah, I'm sure she doesn't. I think even that one doctor that described stage 4, I think he put it in, yeah, I felt like he always put it in layman terms for me is that, it's like a train, you're always going to have it. It's in your bloodstream, but he wants to take the train from 60 miles an hour to 0 miles an hour. And I've always just remembered that analogy of, all right, the train just stays and you can stay like that for 20, 30 years. But I've always just treated you with this as people survive it. People do. There are statistically people that survive. And I guess too, like Mark's coworker that they told him to go home, he had 2 months to live. That was 7 years ago and he's cancer free. So you can't always believe these doctors.
Well, no, and you have to, like the reason I didn't go back to the first doctor, she already saw me gone.
Yeah, she didn't care.
She didn't care. And I just couldn't.
She's looking at the odds. She's not looking at the person.
Mm-hmm.
But I think it's hard for these doctors, right? They try to not get too invested because again, patient 116 is going to walk through the door right after you, right? So they're looking at it on a spreadsheet of, okay, this is what you have. These are the odds. This is how you responded. And, you can't look at it that way. You can't treat it that way. But a lot of people get sad. And that's, I think, where you actually die from cancer is how you react to, your brain reacts to it all. But you've always just like.
In particular, I had chemo down there, I think that summer, and I was in the clinic and he would just walk by me and he said, does anything get you down? And I was like, no, I just like cruise above it. Like
But I guess my advice to people, if they're listening to this and that have a friend that's going through cancer, like, I can't give you any advice because you're so different than everyone else. Like, some people would truly need, like, I always laugh, like, if I try to do a meal train for you, you would, like, look at me like I'd lost my mind, right? Like, you'd be like, I'm not taking that from people. Like, but other people with cancer want the attention, want the, not support. Everybody, you need support. Everyone needs support, but they need a little bit more of the lovey-dovey and, oh my God, let's talk about it every day. Like, we don't talk about it most days. We really don't. Like the other day, remember you said something about treatment and I was like, wait, shit, are you still doing that? Like, I just kind of forgot, you know, that you had cancer because it's not a daily topic. And I don't think you do that either. I don't think you sit around and talk to people about cancer.
No,
Um,
I try not to. I had a friend who would she would text me during that period, and the first line of every text
yeah,
was, "How are you feeling?" And then
Bundex. You know,
so I, but it bothered me because I was feeling good that day, or I didn't want to think about it. That's not the first thing in my mind.
right, right.
Really?
But there are people out there that want, and I don't think they're ill will in asking that, but and that's their way of trying to help, and that shows they don't know you well enough to
Mhm.
know that.
Yeah.
Um, I don't think, and again, there are people that just like to be wrapped around the person that's going through all this, but I don't think people mean it in a mean way. You're a unique individual when it comes to how to approach you, how to treat you. And even in a friendship, it's not even about the cancer. It's just, I also know like during back in the day when you did tax season, like Wendy, wait, we're in tax season for the next 3 months. There's Wendy and then there's Wendy tax season. So you could barrel in, say hello in the morning, and I'll talk to you
That's
tomorrow
it.
morning.
Yeah. I mean,
Don't call me the rest of the day
yeah.
with nonsense, talking
True.
about nonsense. I don't have time for that. You know,
Mm-hmm.
you also are very regimented. You can have one glass of wine a night, if even. You're like, that's my one. And I'm like, oh, wait, there's more in the bottle, you know? Um, but you've always been that way, you know? But that's why we'll stay friends forever because you need to calm me down and I need to like throw you out of your regular routine.
I know.
So we need each other.
All right. So let me ask you this question.
Yeah.
After all the talk of healing that I've done,
Yeah.
if I ask you this question, because I ask all my guests, what
Mhm.
does the word healing mean to you?
Healing to me is two founded, like from if I can I using you or healing in general.
Just in general.
I mean, healing to me is not just physical, it's also the soul. It is also like how at the end of your life, all of us are going to die one day,
Mm-hmm.
but it's also about my heart and how I'm at peace, right? Depending on what you believe in the afterlife, like if my body can't be healed, I want my soul to be healed of peace, of no regret, of living the best life. And I think in our daily lives here, it is a healing journey. I don't have cancer, but I still feel like I'm on a healing journey of my own soul. Like, how am I, can be a better friend? How can I be a better daughter? How can I be a better wife, a better mother? And all that is healing. That
Mm-hmm.
is also like, God, I wish I wouldn't have said that. With my children, there are days where I call you and I'm like, I said something I shouldn't have said. And I have to heal from that. So I think healing goes past just being physically sick. You can use that in all aspects of your life. I want your healing to be for me is that you felt, and again, you would be, I could one day away from a bad diagnosis. And that's what I tell everyone. We're
Mm-hmm.
all one day away. But then the end of your life that you felt it wasn't about healing your body. It was about healing your mind and your soul. And you saying, I did everything on this earth that I wanted to do.
Mm-hmm.
And I honored Ben. I honored myself. I honored my friendships. That to me is healing,
That's beautiful.
you know? Um, and again, like all of us, like I say I never used you as an example, but I say to my kids all the time, like, and my Peyton, there's always something, but I'm like, put it in perspective.
Mm-hmm.
This isn't cancer. And she's like, oh my God, if you say that one more time, but when you're not in that world, like their little brains can't, I'm like, you're going to be fine. This is a problem. This is an inconvenience. But again, how you approach that. But
I know. Well, you have been so healing to me. I mean, just the way you harbored me during that time. And I think it was kind of divinely orchestrated that I be with you and your family.
want you back. I mean, I would rather you be here. I mean, I'm in your bedroom right now.
I know
That
you're,
is only you staying here. Um, I'm going to get it redecorated for you to come back and
yeah,
do
because
the
we've
furniture.
talked about like, even if I bought a place down there, it wouldn't even be the same, right?
Yeah, I actually don't want
Yeah.
that. Remember that? I was like, come on, we'll find a condo for you. And I was like, well, I don't actually want that. It's easier if you're here for a week or two and then go home, come back, you know. Um, I'm happy to see that you're finally open to dating.
I
Because
know it.
there's some single men out there
In a date.
looking to
Yeah.
date.
I did. Yeah.
Yeah, but I mean,
It's okay. Like I don't have to, it was so much
you don't have to tell
stress.
people right off the bat I have cancer. Like, you
Yeah.
don't know
So
if they
you
have
really
it.
don't have to lead with it anymore. I mean, it's
No, you don't,
you
because
put yourself
you're
out
in
there.
remission. You're healed from it. God has healed you from it. So that conversation, and I do believe that. I do believe that if I said God healed you from it, He will heal you from it, because only God can heal us, and He did. And we put Gigi's prayers on it, and you know her; she's got that network. But yeah, you don't have to lead with that anymore. One day you can talk about it after a couple dates. You know, I had cancer.
Yeah.
You know.
I like the way you say that.
Yeah, I had cancer. Yeah. No, it is what it is. You also don't lead with my son died, right? That is not
A
something you
long
lead with.
time before I could. I mean, I had to go through a long period before I could.
Even talk about it, right? I mean, that's what I'm saying is like we don't have to lead with any of that stuff anymore. Now it should just be who am I? Like that's part of your healing journey.
Well,
Who
if
am
you
I?
Google me, it's going to be there. So
Yeah.
yeah. I mean, so there's that, but
But that's the thing, and your healing journey should be when you're dating is who am I? Well, I'm a business owner, foundation runner. Like I started this foundation, I run this business. Like that's part of your healing journey too, of figuring out who you are right now.
and the more I get back to it, I mean, I definitely do a different version of the business than I used to, which is it's great because I have so much more flexibility. But yeah, I mean, the more I'm out there in the world, the better everything is.
Yeah. But I also think like cancer, people are going to shoot me for saying this. Cancer was almost a blessing for you because you were not happy in your life and it forced you to make decisions about your business that you know you needed to make, but you didn't want to make them. And it forced your hand
Yeah.
at that. And you let some things go that now look at you, you're doing what you want. And you're like, now you're getting too busy. I'm like, oh my God, slow down a little bit.
I really got it. I mean, it's insane right now.
Right. But I'm not saying again, don't shoot me people in this and like start flogging me on Facebook. Not that cancer is a blessing, but it gave you a blessing because you had to make some decisions. And maybe that's your path, right? Because you were miserable before you had cancer. You really were. Like you weren't happy. You weren't thriving. You were going through the motions of life. And it wasn't about Ben anymore because you had been past that. You just were like stuck in your rut, And now I feel like Mark said it last time you came. He looked at me when we all went to bed and he goes, it's the craziest thing. She looks better now with cancer than she did before. I'm like, I know. It is nuts. Tracy and Kelly say that. They're like, it is amazing how good she looks. You would never know that she's sick. And I'm like, well, she's not sick. Well, she's not sick.
Well, cancer, I mean, the chemo kills all your cells, so you get new ones.
Yeah. So, hey, I don't want it, but you took something as awful as it could be and turned it into something fabulous. And that's what you do.
Well,
so
I don't know how else to do it, honestly.
Well, I mean, I know. And that's something that, we keep doing these and you spread the word. And I think your next step is you can have like a cancer survivor workshop or something, because you got to teach people how you do it. But some of that's personality based.
Some of it is, I'm on a very interesting board called Mojo Health, and they're talking about, all these other things that come into this like formula, really.
Yeah.
I'm really like, that's exciting for me. Or I told my oncologist, why aren't we studying the people that actually survive?
Right. And what they did differently. And I would say a mindset. I bet you there are a lot of the mind is a powerful tool. It's the, much more stronger than chemo.
Yeah. I mean, when I was doing all of that, I mean, I listened to music, specific frequencies of music when I was getting my chemo.
Yeah.
I mean, I was doing a lot of things, but I think, individually, do they help? Yes. But I think collectively, it was more of me trying to have some agency about what was happening.
Yeah. But I also think that's part of the journey of how it keeps your mind sharp and mind positive, right?
Yeah.
It's what you believe it works, it's going to work. The way I think it does.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe it doesn't work. Like if I went in and did all the stuff that, listen, Reiki never going to work for me because I'm laying there waiting for the hands to actually touch me. So that's never going to work for me. But if it works for you because your mind and body become connected, then it's a powerful tool, right? You got to believe in what you're doing.
Yeah.
Um,
So a lot of what we do a lot of what I've done is like educating people.
Yeah. Yeah.
Some of these things. So,
So
yeah. But yeah, thank you for
yeah.
being
Well, listen,
an amazing
I
friend.
would love for you to come down again. Like we miss you here. It's time for another Wendy visit.
It's time.
Maybe we'll do let's end this and then we'll do another one while you're here.
Oh, that'd be.
Yeah, we'll do one and we'll sit in the back. We'll sit in your downstairs office.
Yeah, I know people like it when I do Zooms from outside.
Yeah, from the outside.
Yep.
No dog barking today. That's pretty good.
Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah. So,
Well, I will see you. I'll see you soon.
okay, love you.
Bye. Love you.